All right. Hello out there, Temtem world. It's East here. I'm wanted to do some YouTube content, some videos recording to YouTube. So I thought I'd do a quick video here. It's Monday night, talking a little bit about team building in Temtem. How you make a competitive team, one that you can play within the ladder or against the Dojo Master rematch fights, or even eating at a high level in tournaments, things like that. So there are a couple of concepts that I want to try to talk about, but the general sort of thrust of this video is going to be about having a plan and how that influences how you build your team and how you build different individual Tems on that team. And we'll use a couple different examples looking at the Tems with Tem.team, and we'll also go to Tortnight's Garden and take a look at some of the guides, so I can kind of give you a little bit of an example of what I'm thinking about when it comes to putting together a team. So, obviously the team is already sort of finished on this Temtem link. I'm not going to be looking at the camera very much for the rest of the video, just so you're aware. It's a little bit high up for me, so my eyes will dart around a bit. Hopefully everything kind of comes through and is recorded smoothly. Alright, so as you can see, the team is already constructed here. I have these 8 Tems on my team, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about how I came to build this team. I don't know if it's a good one. I don't know if it's going to have particular success yet. I've just built it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of what goes into that and how I build teams in this game. I am by no means the best player in the world. I am something like 1535 on the ranked ladder, and my elo rank is something like 75th or something like that. So not bad, but not the most experienced. And when I build teams in Temtem, my goal is to not just win, but learn a lot about the game. And I find the best way to do that is to bring your ideas to compete against other people's ideas. So let's get into how I'm doing that with this team. So usually I get an idea about a Tem, or about a type, or about a play style, like aggro or stall or mid-range, or some sort of way in which I want to play the game, and I start building out the team based off of those ideas. So the two main ideas for this team, the core that sort of forms the plan of what I'm working around, are this Volerend and this Zalbion. Let's take a look at those. So, Volerend, I kind of had the thought occur to me while I was just kind of talking in the main competitive Discord chat that one of Volerend's weaknesses is that it has really, really low stamina, and its stamina gain per turn is not enough to really support a strong sort of offensive, consistent playstyle with Volerend. So I got to thinking, what if I just dump 200 plus stamina into a Volerend? And I ended up on 65. This is a Sweatband breakpoint. So with Sweatband, I'll actually be gaining 12 stamina per turn on Volerend, which obviously requires a lot of investment. And my thinking here was, if I build a team of Tems that can amplify Volerend's offensive capabilities, I can make up for Volerend's stamina problems with my gear and my TV investment. So that was the first plan. Okay, the first part of the plan was I want this Volerend that can be offensively enabled by the rest of my team, and will have a lot of stamina so that it can sit there against high special attack teams and just spam Noxious Bomb and Feather Gatling, the occasional Toxic Plume, to beat my opponents and make up for Volerend's weaknesses, making it like an all-around, like really good carry Tem for my team. That was the first idea. Second idea was, for a while, I've sort of thought that this was the best set that Zalbian has. I think Purgation and Heat Up, and again, I could be wrong, might be, probably am. I think Purgation and Heat Up are Zalbian's two best moves, because Purgation allows you to enable your teammates to do more damage, while Heat Up enables Zalbian to do more damage more quickly than most other Tems. Like, the thing that makes Heat Up strong is that it lets you put all of your eggs in a Zalbian basket and lets Zalbian carry. And my thinking is that you don't actually need Attack T and all the different same type attack bonus moves, the coverage, because digitals are unresisted. So if you combine 2 digital attacks with Heat Up, you can run Purgation as your 4th attack. And if you do that, you can buff up your teammates with Purgation if it's a bad game for your Zalbian. And if it's a good game for your Zalbian, you can Heat Up and then, beat everything up. Makes sense, right? Now, I mean, obviously these are a little bit controversial. This is not how most people would play a Zalbian. This is probably not how most people would play a Volorend. But these are 2 ideas that I thought I'd like to test. And they're 2 ideas that sort of kind of work together, right? Volorend is really weak if you can lower its attack or play it against teams that can stop it from increasing its attack. Zalbian can do that. Zalbian can Purgation Volorend to increase its attack. So Zalbian can fuel the Volorend game plan, while at the same time presenting itself as its own win condition with Heat Up. So these are my 2 main ideas. I'm going to build my team around Zalbian and Volorend. So, my next thought is that because I'm running these 2 Tems, how do I put these 2 Tems in the best position to carry the game? Right? It's kind of what I'm thinking about now. Well, they're both Tems that deal a lot of physical damage, and they're both Tems that are weak to electric attacks. Zalbian and Volorend only share one weakness, and that's electric. Zalbian also has a weakness to digital and water. That makes Ragnet an excellent pairing for these 2. For 2 reasons. One, Zalbian and Volorend are weak to electric, and Ragnet can take electric attacks and actually pull them away from them. Electric is a very good weakness in Temtem, I think, to have. Like, you want to be weak to electric because it gives you reasons to run Ragnet, or Zizare, or 2-Wire, and we'll get to that later, or Mudrid, or other Tems that can do a lot when up against electric Tems. Electric is not a great attacking type. It can very easily be manipulated and pulled around by Electric Custodian, which is kind of what we're aiming to do with this Ragnet here. And on top of that, another reason to run Ragnet is that Ragnet is able to sort of protect these 2 Tems, but also enable them offensively, because Ragnet has Perfect Jab. And Perfect Jab lowers the opponent's defenses, grants them -1 defense every time it hits them. And so that's a great thing to have when you're trying to carry the game with offensive physical attackers like Volorend and Zalbian. Zalbian will be faster than Ragnet when it uses Cyberclaw, but when it uses Turbo Attack, it'll be slower than Ragnet. So Ragnet can Perfect Jab into my Heat Up Zalbian's Turbo Attack for massive damage. And also Perfect Jab ahead of Noxious Bomb or Feather Gatling on my Volorend, which is great. I've also set it up so that Ragnet is going to Perfect Jab faster than everything on the team, but we'll get into that a little bit later. that's a great Tem for the strategy. And so I said, okay, so I'm going to be running Ragnet, right? To take the electric weakness. I'm also going to run Redirection Device on this Ragnet, so I can steal even more threats to my Zalbion, right? And take them in. And stop them from being effective. And on top of that, Ragnet gets the digital synergy on Electro Punch to hit Water Tems before they can hit Zalbion. So that's pretty useful as well. So very good synergies with Zalbion. Also has some neat synergies with Volarend as well, taking away electric attacks and setting up Perfect Jab. So enough about Ragnet. Because we're running a Ragnet with Electric Custodian, we can really lean in to a defensive typing, which is basically, I am going to be really weak to electric. And we can pair the Ragnet with Common Factor 2-Wire. Because Common Factor 2-Wire takes away the type chart, I can pair it with my Ragnet as a defensive synergy that's going to stop electric Tems from ruining my team that's weak to electric Tems. In a way, I can turn electric matchups from a weakness to something that I am quite good at. I can pull them away with Ragnet, and I can nullify them with 2-Wire. And that defensive synergy informs the rest of the Tems that I want to take. But all of this, the choices that I've made so far, Ragnet, 2-Wire, are informed by I want to play Volarend and Zalbion together. I want to play this Zalbion set, and I want to try high stamina Volarend. Like those two things, I'm thinking, how can I give these two the best game possible? And then I go down and I say, okay, well, I can run more Tems that are weak to electric and use these two as my defensive core. That means that I can run Nagais. Nagais is very strong alongside Ragnet. It also is pretty good with Common Factor because it has a lot of weaknesses and it can nullify them. And it compromises my opponent's draft. But we'll get into Nagais a little bit later. But the idea is Nagais is a Tem that fits my defensive synergy, so I can run it. But I still want to think about these two, right? How can I give Volarend and Zalbion an even better game? Well, I should be looking for more Tems that do things like Ragnet, right? I want defensive traits that can help them stay alive. I want moves like Perfect Jab that are going to debuff my opponent's defense, or moves like Purgation, which are going to buff my attack, so that these two can do more damage over time and sort of overwhelm the opponent. Now, I've already got the defensive synergy sort of covered here, because I've got Common Factor on my 2-Wire, I've got Electric Custodian on my Ragnet, and my opponent can only ban one of those things. So I'm always going to get my defensive option into the game. And I'm always going to get one of my carries into the game as well. So I need more Tems that can take advantage of the Purgation boost, and also can apply more offensive boons to my team. And so I decided that what I want to try off the gate is Piranhient, Calavis, and Tuvine. All sort of crept in different speed tiers. The Tuvine is faster than the 2-Wire. No, the Tuvine goes after the 2-Wire, who goes before Zalbion, who goes before Piranha, who goes before Volarend. That's not super important, but basically, all of these Tems are furthering that game plan. You'll notice, if you look at the type chart, even with Mucus, all of these two of these Tems are weak to electric, right? So now, including Nagais and 2-Wire, I have 6 Tems that are weak to electric. But I have Common Factor, and I have Electric Custodian, so I'm pretty safe against those. And I further insulate myself by adding one of the strongest physical crystal attackers in the entire game to help with my electric matchup. In an offensive perspective, Piranhient and Schween's Horn Calavis can deal so much water damage. And water is a great offensive option alongside Voldorend. Not a lot of things can resist Voldorend's combination of Toxic and Wind and Water. Like, Water Wind is a pretty good attacking. There's not a lot of stuff that resists Water and Wind. Really, only other Voldorends. But other Voldorends take neutral from Wind. But, like, there aren't very many Tems that are very good at taking that type combination. So I do want, if I can, to get a solid Water attacker next to these two Tems. Schweenshorn Calibus deals a ton of physical damage if you invest into its attack. It's a little bit risky to do so, but basically it gives me another heavy attacker that I can put these buffs on to try and carry the game with. Piranha gives me access to Purgation, which will buff now my Calibus, my Zalbian, my Voldorend. Can also buff up Tuvine or Two-Wire or Ragna if I really need it to. Can also buff up itself. And it gets Cold Geyser and Noxious Bomb, which are nice kind of type coverages as well. Calibus gets Humiliating Slap, which again lowers my opponent's defense, furthers my game plan. And it deals a ton of damage with Schweenshorn Toxic Ink, which is another kind of way that I could put out this damage, taking advantage of Purgation, Humiliating Slap, which I'm also running on my Tuvine. Right? So this Tem enables my game plan even more because it's slapping things, it's lowering their defense. It's also countering electrics with its Crystal Plume Gatling. It's also providing wind damage and toxic damage alongside the water damage because that's a difficult combo to resist. Crystal Plume Gatling. Crystal is also very difficult to resist when used in conjunction with water. And of course, nothing really resists digital other than some very specific edge cases. So you can see that I've got a pretty good set of attacking types that I think are going to be difficult for the opponent to defend. A way to scale my damage later and later into the game. And a defensive synergy that's going to stop my Tems from getting hard countered by electrics, which otherwise they would be quite weak to. Right? So, these are the 4 ideas that I use to build my team. I'm really only concerned with one type when putting together my type matchups, right? That type being electric. This group's also pretty good into water. A lot of good resist to water damage, which means that waters are going to be pretty discouraged from being first picked into my team, which means Zalbian gets to set up very commonly, right? So that's kind of what goes into putting together my team. I come up with a plan that I want to try, and every Tem that I pick feeds into that plan, right? Now, you'll notice that, like, we go Tornate's Garden tier list. There's a lot of Tems that are very high on this tier list that are missing from my team, right? There's no Tulkin, there's no Yowler, no Mimit, no Amphitheater, no Mushuk, no Scaravolt, no Volphy, no Valash. So, of the 9 Tems that are in, like, A+ and S tier, I'm running one of them, the guys. But these Tems don't fit what I'm necessarily trying to do, right? They don't provide the things for my team. They don't fit into my plan necessarily exactly the same way. Now, a Mushuk, for example, might fit into the plan quite well. It can perfect jab. It can tenderness my opponent to help my Voldorend out with physical attackers. Maybe a substitution I could look at if my Calibus isn't working particularly well. I could swap my Calibus out with a Mushuk. And so what I can do is I can sort of look at something like this tier list, which is a kind of a list of Tems that are like pretty strong, and think about, oh, maybe these guys, what are some substitutions from this list I can think about to help out my game plan in the future? Like Scunch is a great P-Jab Tem, but I'm not running Scunch. I've got maybe Scunch would go in the 2-line slot, for instance. But I don't feel like my team really needs melee coverage in order to win Like, I think I do pretty well against crystals overall, and I do pretty well against earths offensively. Yeah, and I'm like okay into melees as well. Like, there's a lot of different things that I could experiment with around the game plan as it continues to evolve. So this is a little bit different than just sort of putting together a combination of Tems that all complement each other type-wise. I think that's it's more important to have a very clear idea of what your team is trying to do, and then build around those things. So that's part one, how to build the team, and then actually I'll do a part two another time where we can talk about like how to play the team, whether or not the team is successful, and like what adjustments I can make. But in the meantime, let's go into how to build the Tems. So one thing to keep in mind is that if I'm amplifying the offensive output of my Tems, I don't necessarily have to invest most into their attacking stats. Especially if the Tems themselves are not particularly fast. Zalbian reaches a speed of 138 on my team, but even Priority Cyberclaw won't be that fast. So instead, what I want to do with my gear selection and also my TVs is to try and lean more into Zalbian's bulk. Try and take advantage of its base HP to try and make it a little bit more resilient, and only as fast as it absolutely needs to be. And then I put the rest into its attacking stat, and this will be buffed up by Heat Up, or by Iranian, or Tuvine, or Two-Wire, or Ragnet, debuffing the opponent. Or maybe it won't matter at all, because Zalbian will just be purgationing Volarend instead. Well, that's an example of using TVs to address some areas of concern in your team. I don't have a lot of defensive options on this team. Like, I don't have a lot of my defensive options are some type specific ones. I don't have a lot of like ways to. I don't have any ways of raising the bulk of my team, and I have no healing. So I have to use my TVs to make my Tems a little bit more resilient, and then rely on the bonuses that I'm getting to translate into damage. So, I'll talk about that more in the next video when we talk about how to think about how your team's damage performs over the course of a game, how to raise that up, and whether or not you can actually do that, and so on and so forth. But for now, also it's important to think about your speeds real quick and how they feed into your plan. So my plan is for Volarend and Zalbian to do the carrying, so I want to make sure that they are slower. I have Zalbian as faster than Piranian in case I need to use it as a purgation bot. Only in Piranian and Calavis's case. But for everything else, I have them set at 138 and 136. 136 is the third slowest on the team. Only Nagais and Calavis are slower. And the reason for that is pretty obvious, I would imagine. It's to make it so that Volarend is always going after it's either been purgationed or the opponent has been minus def debuffed. And that's just part of the plan. And so I've set up everything's speed in such a way. Ragnet is at 141. Two-Wire is at 140. Tuvine is at 139. Zalbian's at 138. Piranian's at 137. And Volarend's at 136. I could also set this up in such a way that they would be speed tied. This is a thing that Vasi, who's a pretty famous Temtem player, does as well. They match their speeds, and then they know which other one that is on the left is the one that'll go first. And then they sort of put it together from there. But yeah, that's an option you can consider as well. But I don't like doing that because I'm not that good, basically. One final note before the end of the video. One thing that I know a lot of people talk about that I haven't really mentioned at all is you'll notice that at this early stage of the team building process, when I'm just kind of putting together these Tems, you'll notice I didn't mention any specific Tems that the opponent might be carrying. So I think a lot of times people get caught up in their building a team, and I ask them, like, what do you want to do with this team? Like, what do you want to do with the Tem? What's your Tem's job? And they'll say stuff like, I just really want to kill Volfi. I just really want to, beat Yowler. I really want to, like, hard counter. I don't like it when my opponent uses Lowaddle combos on me. Or, like, Lowaddle Mimit, or, like, Koish Mimit. I hate that. When you're starting to build teams, don't think so much about what other people are doing. Think about, like, what appeals to you and what you want to do. What ideas do you have about the game that you want to explore? And good or bad, figure out whether or not they're working and, like, how to improve them. That's how you get better at this game, right? They get better at most strategy games, right? Yeah. But that would be another note. Like, at no point in this team building process did I go, like, I gotta make sure I have a Yowler answer in here, right? Like, my answer for specific Tems may come up at a later point in the team building process or in the testing process. But for the most part, I am going to roll over any individual Tem with my plan, with my game plan. Which is, like, no matter what it is, I'm just going to debuff your def, raise my attack, and run you over with my Volarend or my Zalbian. Like, that's my plan. And I need to figure out if that plan works against everything or if it doesn't. And that's the beautiful part of Temtem, is you get to find out and then adjust based on that. But yeah, I think that should do it for the video. If you like this, you can, I don't know, what do you do in YouTube videos? Like, comment, subscribe, whatever, like. Cool. I'm going to try and make more of these. We'll see how it goes. If I have more ideas that I want to talk about, we'll get those going. But that's going to be it for now. Thanks very much. Before I leave, though, shoutouts to Tem.team and TortNightsGarden.com, two resources that I use a lot in team building. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you around.